I want to start with some basic core principles. The reason downtowns exist, and School Street being a very important corridor, is to maximize exchange. But it's more than just the exchange of our money, our service, our products and goods. It's also the social life, the feeling about this is our town, that this is where we go to see others, others to see us. And it's amazing. It's not about speed. It should never be about speed for the downtown. So I've just pulled together some images to show that what the street looks like when it's alive, when it's thriving. People linger. They're not loitering, they're lingering. And in Europe, they don't even use the word loitering. They're looking for people to linger in Europe. And so I like to say that to bring back vitality and the vibrancy, that we've got to have the right elements, the right components. You've got many of them, but some of them are a little weak, and we'll look at that. How do we strengthen that? So I'll give an example. I got to work on the street on the left. It's a famous street. It's called Espanola Way. And before, you can see, it was actually a scary place. In fact, there was a period where there were the person who owns the building on the left, on her way to work, walking, every third or fourth day she'd walk over a dead body. It was that tough. This is Miami Beach. Today, that same street looks like what you see on the right. And there were only a few things that needed to change to bring forth that life. So we say the parts of Ukiah that are built for the car are very difficult to resurrect for walkability. But School Street, which is a good example, has the buildings in the right place, has the right scale, and has the opportunity to become a destination street. You can see it in an LA scene, which is really focused on cars, or Healdsburg, and just a beautifully done street, just nice details. It's not wide, but it's got all the right core elements working. And that's what our team is challenged to do, is to figure out what are these distinctive elements that bring it together. So now I want to take you to one of my favorite streets in the world. In London, what you see as a monument down at the end is called the Seven Dials. There are actually 7 streets that converge. But look at all the elements that come together to make this street very low speed, very authentic. People stop, they look at the buildings, they look at the shop windows. And there are 5 elements that when you're finished, you're going to want to have at very high levels. A strong sense of enclosure. Your buildings are already doing that in most areas. You want the transparency, 60 to 90% window and door glass, the right scale for humans, and then rich in complexity and imageability. And once we get all those things together, then it's going to really pop and sizzle. It really will. I'm going to introduce some other language. Our team is looking at the paths. That includes streets, the walkways, and any other way that people move. Then the edges. So we're going to pay a lot of attention to the edges. The districts. You've got several districts we're working with. Certainly, School Street itself is one district. The nodes are the intersections, and then the landmarks. And you've got all of these working for you, and you can strengthen several of them. One of the things that help build that imageability is to have gateways. So at either end of the School Street corridor, something that says you've arrived, you're here. All behavior is different inside this zone than outside. This is a street I got to work on in Washington State. It's actually one of the most sought after streets in the entire state of Washington. But it's very clear the message that is sent visually through the design. And that's what we're asking you to do, is to help us figure out what are those elements. Next topic, but very important because it was really brought out in our first meeting, is different tools for handling parking. The parking is important, and right now you've got angled parking, and it's working actually quite well. And then obviously a great partnership to the trees. And, but there are some other tools, and we're going to talk about them. One is back-in angled parking. It takes up less space. It gives you more street to work with, and it puts the trunk right where you want it to be, and it helps bring down the speeds. That's actually a silly sign. Nobody goes 30 on that street. Nobody should on your street. Let's talk about the value of parking and why you want to retain it. One single parking space, if it's properly managed, that is if the shop owner isn't parking in front of their own store, and it turns over about 12 times a day, that will bring $200,000 to the street. It's that significant. So we don't want to take any parking out. We might move it around a little bit, but Carmel, California has done a beautiful job with their parking. Look what they were able to achieve here. This street's only 54 feet wide, and they got full straight-in 90-degree parking on both sides in that amount of space. They also got, of course, the trees are in. One tool that we can consider is if we get the right amount of parking to live, we might be able to go for a second line of trees that can all start to grow and prosper while the other trees continue to mature. So I love parking. I love the buffer that it creates to the walking conditions. But you can also use planters in a good streetscape. And again, this is the same street in Carmel. It's a marvelous street. Another one of the streets that I was able to work on, this one in Windsor in Washington State. Look how important the parking is, along with the rain gardens, in creating that absolutely quiet place for people to be able to walk. And it also helps slow down the speed of traffic. That particular street, the average speed is about 12 miles an hour. So let's talk a little more about back-in angled parking. It's worth considering. When you use back-in, again, the trunk is where you want it to be. You open the car doors, you're sending your children back to safety. It takes up less space, so you have more street that can be used for other purposes. And by the way, Todd and Rosanna, you can't give out the answer here. How wide is this lane? 12? 10? Who said 10? 9. You nailed it. It is 9 feet wide. So that's an advantage to back-in angle parking, is not only is it the safest way to park, but your lane is actually much safer because you can see when you go to pull out. You're not backing into the traffic. I happen to be a strong proponent of back-in angle parking. Seattle's now probably up to over 200 blocks of back-in angle parking. It's historic. It's been along forever. Again, easy access to the trunk, safer to get in and out. And so there are many advantages if it's worth considering. And I know you did practice or tried it at one point, and it didn't come across, but it's worth studying further. And ADA access was brought up. It's very important with the new PROAG ADA issues. We're trying to get in 2 ramps per corner, but a little more detail. This is a remade set of ADA ramps. You can see we try now to keep the opening to the crossing as wide as the crosswalk itself. And that sends a nice message to the motorists when we do that. Again, we can add new lighting near the intersection, do really nice work with the landscape edges, and keep the full crosswalk width. Another one of my favorite remade places, this used to be a strip center, and we made it into a true town center. And again, notice the ADA ramps are as wide as the crossing themselves, and look at all the beautiful treatments they did with the landscaping. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Todd.
Okay, so I want to try to churn through some of this relatively quickly so we can get to some of the alternatives. But this street is obviously not just parking and cars. There are amenities, and so these are some of the things that we want to get input on from y'all and the rest of the community, things that we should be planning for that are components of a good street. That could include bike parking, seating. Already you have some benches out there. I sat in one for a few minutes today. Lighting is an important one, both decorative and functional. So I know that there's some decorative lighting out there, but also functional lighting, both to illuminate the crosswalks, as Dan talked about earlier, but even just along the sidewalks to give people that sense of security and safety. And then landscaping and drainage. As a planner, I don't understand it as well as some of my engineering colleagues, but super important. Want to make sure that the water that we get during the rain events has somewhere to go, and that we control that. Like, for example, in some of the bulb outs that were put in on State Street on the bottom right of the slide, there's some really nice landscaping opportunities with some of that stormwater retention, but there are also drainage systems that need to be put in, and likely some maintenance on those that are out there already. And one of the issues with the trees is their potential impacts to those drainage systems. Okay, online engagement. Roseanne, were you going to cover this? Yeah. I think I can cover it. I might fly through this one. We've had a social pinpoint website at the QR code live. I believe it's closed now.
Yep.
It was up for the collection of input during existing conditions. There will be another round of online engagement made available through the website to comment on these alternatives after this workshop as well.
Yeah, or a survey, actually. There'll be a survey of sorts, yeah.
But we asked the community 3 questions, love, wish, wonder, and we wanted to make it kind of broad. A lot of online engagement for projects like this ask for people to tell us where they have a driving problem or a walking problem or a biking problem, and it's always problems, and we didn't want to just focus on the problems. And so we wanted to ask what is cherished in the community, what should we protect and enhance? That's the love question. And so some of the things that we heard, downtown character and destinations, the trees, the calm traffic that's already present out there. Wish is more of what would you like to see on the street that may be elsewhere in Ukiah, but you'd like to see it on School Street. Again, traffic calming, so people really wanting to protect that and enhance that. A desire to look at changing the traffic flow. Dan mentioned that earlier, looking at the potential for maybe making School Street one-way along certain blocks, and those are some concepts we can talk about tonight, or maintaining it two-way is still on the table, of course. Maintenance, streetscaping, amenities, recreation, space for community events, parking changes, these are all things we've already kind of covered. Things that people want to see preserved on the street. And then wonder sometimes gets at some of those things that people have concerns about in the future. And here it's concerns about repurposing existing buildings. I know there's a vacant hotel and potentially other changes happening along the street. Perhaps people are sensing some degradation, wanting to make sure. And so in our plan, what can we do to help address those concerns? And a good, strong streetscape improvement can help create an inviting place for people to invest their money and come spend money as well. Okay, so our corridor, our study boundary extends from Henry Street down to Clay. And we've got 7 real intersections along that study segment. And for each of those, what we want to do is make sure that we have all the ADA accessibility that's needed, but also look at the possibility of introducing some new curb extensions. Those are functional for stormwater retention, drainage, but also functional from a safety perspective. They bring pedestrians a little bit closer into the street. I know we've heard some concerns about that. If anybody here has experience with those, we're certainly happy to engage on that. I think that what I see on State Street, and to the extent some of these curb extensions have come up to school already, looks really great. To me, it looks like a great conversion that happened on State Street, but definitely want to hear from y'all if you have any questions about that. The other dot on here, raised intersections, is a little bit different. And some of your intersections almost already function like that because the roadway has been overlaid to the point where it's flush with the sidewalk. But creating a flush crossing with some vertical deflection, so almost like a little bit of a hump, so that the vehicles have to drive over to cross the intersection, creates a really good traffic calming effect, as well as really signaling to the drivers that this is an intersection and people could be coming from different directions, pedestrians, bikes, cars. So, be careful, be cautious. You're approaching a conflict area, as we would call it in the industry. Okay, trees. Trees are kind of the one of the touch points here that I don't know that I initially anticipated fully, but this is going to be a plan that has to address the trees, and the trees are beautiful. The trees are wonderful. The first time I came up here and took pictures, I think that may be my picture. If not, I have a very similar one. It's just gorgeous. But if you travel along the sidewalk, I'm sure you've all seen some of the damage that's starting to take place. And so we need a plan to make sure that those trees either have room to grow fully and we fix what's going on with the sidewalks, or come up with some other solution that makes sure that those trees don't one day all have to be ripped out and you end up with a barren landscape. And so we're going to talk about some options here on how we could handle this. One is to just retain them in place, and there are some strategies that we can look into that try to extend the life of the tree in place while also protecting the infrastructure around them. It's unclear to me. I'm not an arborist, and in fact, we would recommend that a full arborist-led study likely be done to truly ascertain the health of the trees, so that we know no matter what the plan is moving forward for this street, we need to know what the health of the trees is. To a degree I certainly can't tell you. I know the city has looked at some solutions to preserve and extend the life of the trees, which include pruning some of the roots underground, and that's an intervention that I'm not sure we've seen whether that is going to work yet, Tim. But it's something we want to try. I mean, everyone wants to try to preserve them as long as we can. So one option is to do that and see how much longer we can preserve the trees along the corridor. Option two that we started kicking around as a project team was moving the trees. And that seems to be possibly the least desirable option. Very difficult to move a tree and ensure its continued health. It's very expensive. You have to, as you can imagine, dig out a huge root ball and then replace it. Very difficult and uncertain if it'll actually work, right? So you could go through tremendous cost and then ultimately it may not work. The third option would be to do an incremental tree replacement program. And so I don't think any of us wants the plan to recommend just raising every tree and replanting and starting over, but some sort of incremental approach where we start with the trees that are perhaps causing the most damage, and we start planting new trees and replacing and removing those that are most problematic, so that over several phased intervals, you ultimately end up with a brand new, a fully fleshed out corridor with mature trees. And in the future, what we would suggest is that a a replacement strategy be continued. And so you're doing this on a regular basis, every other tree, every third tree, whatever the case may be, so that you don't have kind of all the issues happening at once for an entire block face, which is what we're starting to see on each side of Perkins, right, on School. There's some issues, especially on our side of the street here, the west side. The kind of related to all of this is the actual physical location of the trees. And this will be a little bit more clear when I turn it over to Rosanna. But if you can imagine this kind of red paver lead strip, that's your current curb face, essentially, the outside edge of that. And that's where the trees are today. And you can see the mature tree trunk right there, another one there. There's not a ton of space here today. And using more of the street width, so moving the curb line inward, would provide an opportunity to create new planter areas at regular intervals, and that could be a really useful tool in our toolkit in a replacement strategy. But there are implications, obviously, to that. If you're taking away space from the current curb-to-curb width, the current street and parking, then there are some decisions that need to be made about what that street functions like. So if you did an incremental tree replacement program, how would that affect the reconstruction of the sidewalks and the utilities and all of that? Because you kind of want to do that in a batch, right? You don't want to fix half of the sidewalk on a curb face or do it every 10 feet. And so we would need to talk about that with some of our engineers in terms of the construction phasing of that. I think that what would likely happen is we would reconstruct the entire sidewalk and try to do some mitigation strategies for the trees that remain in place. But there would likely be some issues that continue to occur at the trees that remain. So some maintenance and reconstruction may be required down the line if we go with that incremental replacement strategy. Another option could be to do a whole block face at a time, which maybe would be a more financially sustainable strategy, so you don't have to go back and redo work.
So with that, going through the circulation alternatives in terms of where the vehicles and parking and how all of that may change depending on the room that's left when you widen the sidewalk for the tree replacement program, or look at retaining the trees to the extent possible. We have developed 4 alternatives, and I'm going to walk through them. So existing conditions, first of all, it's a 2-way street. You have diagonal parking. It is relatively wide. We're about 70 feet between buildings and 50 feet curb to curb with the roadway. You have angled parking. There are some parallel spaces, loading zones, handicap accessible parking. And we also, from the first workshop, we heard that some areas have some lighting needs as well. So that's something we're looking at in the plan as well. And then these, where's the pointer thingy, this thing? Okay, yeah. These triangular kind of semi-curb extensions, we're looking at formalizing those to go around the curb, to extend the curb and have ADA ramps, at those locations. Okay, so currently you have a bunch of one-way streets alternating between Church and Henry. And then alternative 1, we have proposed an option for a one-way street with diagonal parking. Now, I've coined this term as a split one-way, where you come in at Perkins and you can either make a left going south all the way to Clay, or make a right and go north to Henry. So it's one way north from Perkins, south from Perkins. And then that would also provide parallel parking on both sides. You would be able to.
Diagonal, sorry.
Oh, sorry. I misspoke. Diagonal parking on both sides and room for those trees we've estimated about 5.5 feet there with that. And then this option also shows what it could look like if back-in parking is desired. You could test that out on one block if you'd like on that side. And then pull in parking on the other side. And we have a 3D rendering there on the next slide. So this is showing what that could look like, where we have those, formalized curb extensions, and actually I'll go through the thing here. So this is Church Street. This is Perkins. So we go north from Perkins and south from Perkins, and then back in parking, just showing as an option. The room with the trees, wider sidewalk, more space for more benches, bike parking, some native landscaping and rain gardens, and high visibility crosswalks we would install at the crosswalks that are faded. The paint is kind of faded. Do you have a question?
Just a super quick comment. I like that you could either pull forward or back. I like that option because maybe not everyone doesn't have the rear camera.
Yeah.
Right.
Forward is safer for them, so that's nice. You could do either one right there.
Great. So just to repeat the comment was that you like that you can have the option to either pull in forward or back in on either side of the street.
Question,
Yes.
would the same work just as well by having pull-in parking on both sides?
Yes. So the question was, could this configuration work with having pull-in parking on both sides? And the answer is yes. And the next option shows that. So that was just showing how back-in parking could work. But yes, you would be able to fit in pull-in parking alternatively if you wanted that one-way, configuration for the one-way streets. Now, alternative 2, we're looking at only northbound all the way from Clay to Henry. And that was decided because a lot of people come in from Perkins or Clay Street, and then just looking at the circulation, you could go around the block and easily, get around that way. And then also this has 5.5, the same kind of configuration in terms of widening the sidewalk for more trees. We didn't show the trees in this, but you could put it in there. And this also, this option shows pull-in parking on both sides, just like you had commented. So here's the rendering for that. This is what it would look like. You have northbound the entire length, from Clay Street. And then you would have bike parking, benches, curb extensions, room for trees, and all of these renderings show that raised intersection concept down here as well, where it almost currently is like that at a lot of places. So just formalizing that, adding landscaping. Okay, alternative 3. This is what an option looks like if you want to retain the current street configuration. Again, there are risks with the trees in this configuration. This is showing, the two-way street with diagonal parking, and there's an opportunity to widen the sidewalk between Stevenson and Church Street because it's pretty wide in that block. So here's what that could look like, and this is just adding the same amenities, but retaining the trees. And Todd mentioned, what the risks are with that. In terms of the tree health is unknown at this time.
Without widening the sidewalk, you're not really able to give the trees more room than they have today. Maybe a little bit around the edges, but
Yeah, the trees would still be constrained with the current curb here. Okay, and then last but not least, the fourth alternative is converting the street to have two-way parallel parking. This time I mean parallel. So you would be able to retain it as a two-way street if you don't desire a one-way street. So there's, different options we're looking at. But in order to fit in the trees, the new trees, and widen the sidewalk to provide more space so it doesn't tear up the sidewalk again, that parallel parking would be a great fit here. And you would also have room for other street, furniture and amenities. And here's what that could look like. Yes, Shannon.
Estimate of how many parking spaces would be lost by converting from diagonal to parallel parking?
Yes, so just to repeat the question for everyone, how many spaces would be lost, estimated, if we convert it from diagonal to parallel parking? Now, part of this is also state law with the daylighting is going to remove parking, 1 or 2 parking spaces per block, either way, with this plan. And actually, it should be, current, where with curb extensions, you're not allowed to have parking on the approach within 15 feet of the crosswalk. And then without curb extensions is 20 feet. And you guys currently have curb extensions, so it would be 15 feet on that approach. Oh, thank you, Dan. So let me answer the question first. With that, with converting to parallel parking, I knew this question would come up, so I did do the math. So you would lose about 2 or 3 spaces per block.
Per block face or total block?
Per block face.
so
Yeah,
6,
and then
4 to 6 per block.
yeah, so
Okay,
so
yeah.
4 to 6 per block, and there are currently loading spaces out there that you could convert into non-loading spaces, ADA spaces. You would still need a couple of those. And steps for the plan are we want to see what you guys can put together for what your ideal school street is. And we will adjust our proposed, alternatives accordingly. And, from today's session, from our first workshop, what we had, and we'll come back for a third workshop, I think in the fall. And we'll develop a draft plan and, have the community review that. And then that eventually goes to city council. And then it's preliminary plan, very conceptual level, that will set up the city to seek funding sources to do further design and then construction.